I say for you, put it someplace you can, and then come back to it. Because when we're in that emotional state of, stress or frustration or irritation or overwhelm, we don't want to be making decisions. And so I say put it in a safe place if you can, put it in the closet, put it in the garage. If you have a financial ability to put in storage, do that, and then let some time pass, and then go back to it.
Welcome to Reframe and Reclaim. We are Courtney Huckabee, a psychotherapist,
and Jen Harris, an interior designer who have teamed up
to reflect,
challenge,
and reframe your mindset in relationship with your personal belongings.
Join us as we discuss and declutter all of the stuff that keeps us stuck.
Learn to intentionally create environments with improved function and design that cultivate peace of mind. Find the reframe.
Start your reclaim.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Reframe and Reclaim. I am Courtney Huckabee.
And I'm Jen Harris.
And we're here today to talk about the sandwich generation, a generation that Jen and I both belong to. So if you're not aware of it, did you actually know that the sandwich generation became a term in 1981?
I did not know that. I thought it was much more recent than that.
I know. Well, we didn't really hear about it a whole lot until we became part
we're
of
in
this,
the generation.
of this generation. But a social worker, Dorothy Miller, actually coined the term sandwich generation, which means like sandwich between two other generations that they are caretaking for. Their children and their aging parents. And that's something that is really challenging for us. And so we just wanted to talk about that because it's something we're experiencing, and we have a lot of friends and clients who have talked about that experience and how to kind of navigate that.
Yes, yeah. How many of your clients come in, or have you had any experience with clients that are stuck in this in-between state?
So many. So as we have, adults coming in for counseling, they're coming in for individual concerns and life stressors. And one of the life stressors is, how do I manage and balance work and caring for my children and all of the things that they are going through, and managing care, doctor's appointments, even sometimes financial support of their aging parents. There's just a ton of stress. There's a ton of anxiety, worry, and just really trying to reallocate their time and their resources. And so I would say a lot of adults who come in to see me personally are really in this sandwich generation of, their parents are becoming older and they're not as healthy or not as, involved, or, having to manage those doctor's appointments, or even assisted living, or nursing care, or doctors, procedures. And so it can be quite challenging mentally and emotionally.
Yes, and I know you have lived through this. I personally, my mother and my husband's parents are their health is very good, and so I haven't had to deal with the caretaking up quite yet. I know that is coming soon, and so I'm going to learn from you because I know you've lived through this with your mother-in-law.
Yes. And so, 54% of people in the sandwich generation, that's usually ages in their 40s and 50s, 54% of those in that age bracket, so we're just coming into this age bracket in the recent years, are actually experiencing the sandwiching. And I actually started experiencing this even earlier with my grandmother. So my father passed away when I was younger. And so when my grandmother, who was aging, having a lot of health concerns, I volunteered with my aunts to help out, So we're all spread over the U.S. We're all, wanting to help and take care of my grandmother. I just happened to have a flexible work schedule. I was self-employed at the time in my own private practice, as my grandmother was needing more, caretaking, surgical procedures. She needed a little bit more supervision at the time. So I was able to go once a month and visit her in Florida and spend a week or two at a time. But, that, was before I had children, before I was married, and I was able to do that. And that's a huge stressor. And now with my husband, we are helping to care for his mom who has had a stroke, and we've relocated her to our space. And his dad, who's aging, and his stepmom, they help us with our child, and we wanted them just to be closer to have that relationship. So we are definitely navigating that, and it is a huge challenge and a burden. However, having support is so important. So whether it's friends, whether it's your own counseling, maybe you have family members that you share that responsibility with, it can be really, really helpful. But my husband, he's an only child. And so when it comes to his aging mom, he has me, and we have, the apartment community that she's at, and we've added in extra resources for her, but she's very, very close to us, and we see her multiple times a week.
That's awesome.
But it is important to make sure you have those resources, not trying to tackle everything all on your own.
Yeah. Because it sounds like from your own mental health and self-care, if you're trying to take that on your own, that can become so overwhelming. There's so many decisions, and I'm sure people get stuck in the loop. I would do this, like that. Did I make the right decision? Am I making the right decision? And like second guessing and trying to navigate all those feelings, because you're now responsible for another person's life, and their quality of life.
Right. And I think that was so important for, my husband being an only child and me being his partner, is to really talk that through and really make sure that, instead of making an impulse decision or, having decision fatigue, decision paralysis, which a lot of people go through, there's too many decisions to make. So I'm just not going to make a decision about that yet until I have to. And then we get to a place of there's only limited decisions. But I do think it's important, talk to other friends, talk to other family members. There's a lot of experts out there too that are not only doctors and nurses, but, there's expert caretakers, and there's a lot of organizations too that we've, come to realize that are there just for that, to help you manage those decisions or educate you on what that's like for a stroke survivor, or what it's like for someone like my grandmother who was going through memory loss at the time. What it's like for, just having that support of what to expect and what options are, and then what to, kind of like what are the realistic outcomes of those different things, which a lot of people, they think that this is, the end, and it isn't. There's a lot of other options. But I think going with that, when it comes to reframing and reclaim, a lot of times, they're downsizing their parents. They're maybe not in such a large home. A lot of clients I've worked with is, they've had this, large home, and it's too much for them to care for. They have stairs that they can no longer climb. And, we need a smaller space, or we need somebody to come and help take care of the cleaning or the maintenance of their home. And so when you have all of their items and things and belongings, working with them, your aging parent, to decide, what are we going to keep? How are we going to downsize? With this change or shift and transition, having other people come in and help if that's possible too. And then what was really big for me and my family, we wanted to bring my father-in-law closer to us so my little boy would be able to have a really great quality relationship with him and not be so far away, which has been a huge blessing for us. And it can be really great to have them across, the town, across the street, and then have those, just come over for coffee, or, let's go on a walk together, or, have an outing together.
Well, then your son has those interactions, and he sees him more often and builds that relationship, like you said.
Yeah.
So it sounds like support was really the biggest factor for you in helping you navigate, whether it's finding support from friends, finding support from a cleaning service to help tackle all the chores that you don't have time for, or someone to come in and help, downsize and go through things. As far as for those looking for support, if it's, where to go for, if someone has a certain ailment, you said you had resources. Did you get those through the community she was living in? Were you able to get those through her doctor?
We got that through the doctor's offices and the hospitals that we visited. And then we did our own research as well. And so it was really great. And we actually relocated her from another city in Texas, and relocated her closer to us before my son was born. And in that community, we asked them to, it's a independent living. However, they have different levels of care. And we wanted to be able to her to have independence, not have to, she has a living room, she has a kitchen, she has, all the things that she would need to have space for the most important things. But it's really great that those communities give so much education of other, programs or opportunities to take advantage of.
And after her stroke, was she able to decide what her most important things were from her home? Or how did you navigate that process?
Yes, and so we did talk to her a lot about what was most important, and she had a few items that were very important, but we actually moved all of her items from her 3-bedroom home,
Oh, wow.
and we moved it into storage, and we're still going through that storage 4 years later. And so we're also trying to navigate the reframe and the reclaim. From a financial standpoint, we're renting this space, but also from the well-being and health and comfort for her, we don't want her things to just be discarded. And
Right.
so as time has gone by, though, she's been really great. She's like, you know what? I haven't had that for a couple of years. If you can find somebody who would appreciate it,
Oh, that's
somebody
lovely.
who could use it, somebody who could enjoy it, then please do that, because I'm not going to use it. Her mobility has definitely lessened, and so she realizes she's not going to be able to do as much as she used to. So her mindset has shifted too. My lifestyle's changed a little bit, and I'm relocated, and I'm in a new environment, and I have all this different support. And I don't need all those things that I used to need. I don't need the lawnmower. I don't need, I don't need, some of those tools and things that she is now it's taken care of in her community.
So the things that are in storage, are you like bringing her a box every now and then? Are you taking
Yes.
pictures? So you're bringing
Yes.
the items to her for her to
Yeah.
go through.
So she loves reading. She is an avid reader, and I just love that about her. And so she has her own personal library of books. So every couple of weeks we'll bring her books, and what she's doing is she's like rereading the book, or she's like, I've read this before or whatever, and then she donates it to her community library.
Oh, that's lovely.
And so it feels good for her to say, I've enjoyed this. I'm giving it to someone else to enjoy. And so she's learning that skill as she's in this community, meeting people, being supported by others as well.
And that's great that she still has the cognitive abilities to be able to see her things, know her things, be able to make decisions, and even talk through those with you and your husband to say, this is why this is important. I know for my mother, we've had those conversations where it's what items are important to you. And, she has notes down for certain family items. So we know why it is important to her and the family and where it came from. But other things, she's like, after I pass away, she's like, it's fine if you get rid of it. It's important to me. But if you don't want it, no big deal. So we've been able to have those conversations. But if a client was coming into you who it's like, my family member is in deep stages of dementia, they don't know what's going on, because that's a very difficult place to be, because you can feel like you don't want to give up this person's belongings, especially if they're not necessarily there mentally. You may be holding on to those items, right, to try and grasp for those memories. So how do you help people navigate it when one of the decision makers isn't there, right?
Yeah. And actually, I do have clients who come in with those concerns of, they can't physically go through the things, or they're never going to be able to use these things again, or sadly, if they don't have the cognitive ability to remember these things or make decisions, I say, for you, put it someplace you can, and then come back to it, because when we're in that emotional state of stress or frustration or irritation or overwhelm, we don't want to be making decisions. And so I say, put it in a safe place if you can. Put it in the closet, put it in the garage. If you have a financial ability to put in storage, do that, and then let some time pass, and then go back to it. I do think that there are some things like a lawnmower for somebody who no longer has a lawn. That's an easy decision to make. It's not something that is so primary connected
Not
to
emotionally,
them, right?
right.
There's not like gifted down from generations, or somebody handmade this. Now, if it is something that is very sentimental, something that is irreplaceable and one of a kind, unique and important to you, I always say, why don't you put it in safekeeping for you? Make sure it's like closer to where you're at, maybe not in another place, maybe in your home, in your closet for safekeeping, and then make decisions about, am I going to display this? Am I going to, offer it to another family member if they have a use for it or a desire for it? Because it may be something that is irreplaceable, one of a kind, but it's not as valuable to you as it is to your parent. And with those things, there may be somebody else in your family or a family friend who would love to have that. And so sharing that
Right.
and being able to share, the memories that go along with that item too.
That's a great point. And I think too, I know we always think there's more time and, we kind of put those off. It's a low priority item. But I do think the more of these conversations you can have while the person
Yes.
is alive, while they're
Yes.
cognitive, it makes it so much easier for everyone. I know you were saying you have that storage unit for 4 years. It took 15 years, I think, maybe, for my mother and her siblings to go through my grandmother's
time.
items.
It takes time.
And especially with people being in different states, the being able to coordinate everybody there at the same time to go through things. Luckily we have Zoom now and other technological advances that can make that process a little easier. But still, I think the more you can take care of before, the much easier it will be later.
And I think a lot of people, we met at the Warm Place, which is a place for children who are grieving death, and just the survival of, that death loss. One of the things that I found is like people don't like talking about death, and it's not a pleasant thing. It's not something we look forward to.
Right.
But the unfortunate thing is it's going to happen in all of our lives. We're all going to experience death at some time. And so the more we make that a conversation before, your loved one does, get to the place of not being able to make decisions, I think it does reduce so much of the stress for you, but it also creates a lot of relief for that person saying, I know what's going to happen with that stuff. I know that, so-and-so is going to have that quilt I made. I know that so-and-so is going to have, my kitchen bowl that was passed down from generation to generation. And having those conversations, it feels a little bit more like contentment, relief, and, this legacy gets to continue on. But please don't worry about that dress that I bought at Amazon. It's not important. It's something that I bought that I thought was cute and went out of style. Like, those kinds of conversations can also reduce the decision fatigue that you could possibly experience if you're like, I don't know what this meant for her, or I don't know how he used this or where this came from. But having those conversations can also give you insight to your parents' history and your parents' life, which could also help you connect more with understanding of who they are, the things they've been through. And I think that's a beautiful legacy for everybody to just experience and know about.
Well, and I think that's also one of the benefits of being the sandwich generation, right? Because then you can take those stories, pass it down to your kids.
Right.
You can also be thinking about like, oh, if I was in this situation,
Sure.
what would I want my kids to know about me and what items I would like to keep? So I think it, like you said, it just keeps that conversation open because it's going to happen. So the more you can talk about it, the easier it is for everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it gives ease for everybody. It's not like, hey, when you die. It's just like,
Right.
These things are important to you. What's most important? Or for me, I have this wooden pelican little statuette from my grandmother. That's like the only thing that I chose from her. She gifted me different things, but that was the one thing I chose. And honestly, I think she bought it at the pier down the way, but pelicans were her favorite, and that meant the most to me. And so that reminds me of her. It's somewhere that I see it every day. But it doesn't have to be something that's super valuable to her, maybe, but it was really important for me just to remember her and honor her every day. But I think it's so great, for me, my dad was in that generation of the sandwich generation. He passed before my grandmother, unfortunately, but then I kind of got to have more of that relationship with her as he was caretaking for her when she had illness. And so that brought me closer to her. And that's what I'm hoping for my son. And, not that all of his grandparents are sick or anything, but I just want them to have time together and us to make sure that they're getting that relationship with them and I'm there in the middle. But I don't want to feel overburdened and overstressed with the responsibility for all that. So me and my siblings have done some conversations surrounding that. Me and my husband have done a lot of conversations surrounding that. And it's really just kind of like before we get there and the overwhelm comes, or the stress or the grief and the sadness
Decision
comes.
paralysis. Yeah.
Right. And hopefully my son will have lots of wonderful memories with all of his grandparents, because, we all are a little closer in proximity, and we try to make that intentional time together.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you are in the sandwich generation, just know you are not alone. It's really, as our lives are lasting longer because of medical technology and health care systems, we're actually expecting the sandwich generation to, become larger and larger. Also, a lot of people are choosing to, have children later in life. So, that sandwich generation may move from the 40s to 50s to 40s to 60s or older. Our hope for you is that you find community, you find support, and just remember, communication and conversations about these things is really going to add more benefit than stress, I think, overall. And I think a lot of people can get a lot of relief and comfort in these conversations.
Yes. So really the key takeaways are finding your support system, whether it's through friends, through the medical community. There are resources, so spend some time getting that support and seeing what you need. As well as making sure you're having those communications and conversations with family members.
Yeah, and take care of yourself.
Yes,
with that support, make sure that, you are also, taking care of eating. You are also sleeping. You're also going to the doctor when you need to. You're asking for help whenever that's feeling overwhelming, because sometimes people just don't know how to help or where you need help. And it's always okay to say, I'm doing great, but, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of me too.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So if you'd like more information about these things, reach out to your local communities and organizations. If you know of any great organizations and you're in the sandwich population, leave the comment of that below. We'd love to be resourceful to other people in our areas. And then if you would like to find our book, Reframe and Reclaim, a 7-step guide to reframing your relationship with your belongings to reclaim your physical real estate.
Yeah, real estate. Yes.
Real estate.
But the book is a great resource, especially if you're in the sandwich generation and you're in that point where you're wanting to downsize or move someone from one home to another. It really does help you evaluate the items from a emotional and, realistic standpoint of what you can use, what you can't, and how to filter those out. So
definitely. It's really helpful for yourself personally, or if you're having to reframe and reclaim somebody else's things with them.
yes.
Okay.
Till next time.
Thanks for listening to us with Reframe and Reclaim at our podcast. If you are interested in more information about our book, you can find our book at any online retailer. You can also find us at reframe-reclaim.com.